Welcome to another episode of the EcommOps podcast. I'm Simon, your host for today. I've been in this e-commerce cross-border logistics for 13 plus years and still loving it. With EcommOps, we specialize in optimizing order fulfillment for DTC brand owners selling China-produced products. Just a little background about the two guests on this podcast episode. They are actually buying their products from a Chinese factory. They're managing their relationship with the factory themselves. Then they send batch deliveries to our fulfillment warehouse in Shenzhen. And there we take care of their orders. Most of the orders are going from China directly to the end consumer. Main focus is US, but they're scaling to global destinations all across the world. It's good to have a little bit of a context before we go into the details on their journey. But now it's really time for their journey. All right, welcome guys, Tobias and Wouter. Very excited to have you guys here.
Happy to be.
This is a first time for you guys doing a podcast, but I know you guys are really listeners to podcast episodes. So that's definitely something, a passion that both of us share. I love listening to high quality podcast episodes. But we're talking about your journey, your brand. You're running a D2C brand together, which is already interesting to know. But I would like to learn a little bit more about how long are you in e-com and can maybe share a bit about your journey in itself.
All right. Yeah, sure thing. And thanks, Simon, for having us. It's very awesome to be here, especially because we have learned so much from the EcommOps podcast. Tobias and I have been listening to a lot of podcasts and actually applying all of the knowledge ourselves. So it feels quite cool to be here now. Yeah, so Tobias and I have been working together for now almost about 2 years. Directly, but before that we were best friends. We've been in school together in the same class, so we know each other for a very long time. But yeah, working together on this brand for 2 years now, and before that I used to work in private banking for around 6 years, and before that I worked with some friend of ours, a mutual friend of Tobias and myself, also on a DTC brand in fashion, and that is where I got the actual first insights on how a Shopify store works and how everything online works. But there was a huge gap between that period of working on the fashion brand and now working again with Tobias in our own brand.
Yeah. Nicely said. Thank you for having me as well, Simon. Great to be here. Wouter already gave a nice introduction about who we are. For me, I've been in e-commerce since around 2019. I started with a fashion brand as well. It was inspired by actually the friend that Wouter just mentioned. This brand unfortunately failed miserably. However, this was a very learnful and insightful period, because even though you fail, you have so many things that you can learn from. So that was a nice period. Around this time, I think China fulfillment and dropshipping came up very fast as well. So 2018, 2019, I believe. And it was also the first time that we've been in contact with EcommOps already. So we've known you guys for a long time already. That's fun.
Both of you you at least, Tobias, were in e-commerce, then basically went for a corporate career. Wouter, you also kind of toe-tipped a little bit in e-commerce, but went for a corporate career. How do you decided to basically go from e-commerce to corporate and now back to e-commerce?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And for me personally, it was in the period that I worked together with a mutual friend, like we said before. That was something that I did as a side job. I was quite young. It was just something I did besides school. And then after finishing school, I rolled into it. I never made a conscious decision to go into a 9 to 5. I never made a conscious decision to go into private banking. It was just, it happened to happen. And then I was like, okay, it pays well. It's a nice job. It's cool, but that is how life goes. If you do not pay enough attention over decades, then you're miserable and you look back into your life and you have your midlife crisis. So fortunately, somewhere along the line, Tobias and I looked to each other and we were like, okay, this is not meant for us, in the sense that we felt that we had more creativity to offer to the world. And we were also striving to have more freedom in how we fill our days and in the work that we do. 2 or 3 years ago, we were looking at each other and we were like, okay, we have to do something different. And both having the knowledge in the DTC e-commerce space, it made the most sense that we started trying there.
And do you find that freedom and that creativity also more in what you guys doing now, Tobias? Or is it actually a big hustle that actually you're working more and harder and having less freedom than you had before?
That's a really tough question indeed, because I think we've never worked as hard as we do right now. However, the time we have, the freedom we have, allows us to be so much more creative. I mean, we can work whenever we want,
Wherever we want.
wherever we want as well, of course. That's perfect. And actually, the work right now doesn't really feel like work. It's really something we enjoy doing at this point. And the creativity just flows, especially things like this. This podcast as well is really inspiring for us. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think both Tobias and I started our journey when we were still in our 9 to 5. And I remember those days vividly where we woke up at like 5:30 and then we worked 5:30 to like 8. And then went to the office from 9 to 5 and then got home at 6 and then started working from 6 to 11. And if you do that long enough, then you start feeling the fatigue, the system fatigue, and you start feeling less and less creative. And now that we have both made the decision to go all in on the journey and all in on the brand, you feel some type of energy. It's like the universe is talking to you, that you tap into an energy that it gives you the creativity naturally, I would say.
And would you have done it differently, looking back at it then?
For me personally, I would say I would have loved to start earlier. And also, I would love to have started earlier working together with Tobias, because I think for me, that is one of the most valuable parts of the whole journey. But then again, I think if you look at it from an objective point of view, both Tobias and I learned a lot in our corporate journey as well, right? So we learned a lot about what we do not want in our lives, but we also have some valuable skills in terms of how to work, and work structurally, how to build processes, which I think is very valuable.
Yeah, and also I think that you learn a lot during this period because you also recognize what you don't want to do. It's also very insightful learning.
We see that a lot of the brands that do really well, they tend to work in pairs. But what is also commonly known is that most people that work closely together with someone, at some point they might get into an argument or fight. So how do you guys kind of enable each other, but also push each other forward and still have a healthy relationship for the next decades?
Great question. And I think also very relevant. Me and Wouter, I think we're like brothers at this point because we've known each other for so long already. We truly believe that we will continue working together for a long, long period of time because we have crazy ambitions for our current brand as well, and it's perfectly aligned. And in terms of pushing each other, that goes quite naturally as well because we're both ambitious as a person. We share books together, we share podcasts, we have a Slack channel, we have a Notion built around the business as well. So we have so many things that motivates you automatically to work on the business. For example, Wouter is talking to a supplier, I immediately think like, oh, wait, we can also ask this. So it really goes automatically at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting journey that we also experienced personally, in the sense that we started off with trying to make money. That was the main goal. But then somewhere along the way, it became more about personal fulfillment, in a sense that money is just an element that you have to create in order to keep going. But money in and of itself is not the goal anymore. And I think that was a very kind of even a spiritual step that we took somewhere last year, that we saw, okay, as long as we are trying to make money for money, we're still trapped. We're still in the same race where we were when we were in the 9 to 5, right? And I think now that we made the step where we are trying to create a brand, we're trying to create and really tap into that energy, it's much easier to align with each other because it's not about money anymore. And what you said, Simon, I think most of the cases where partners split, generally speaking, is about money. Of course, it's about money, don't get me wrong, but it's not the main goal anymore. And that also really helps.
Exactly. We're trying to build an amazing business with selling amazing products together with amazing people. And that's basically our mission at this point.
So what does that look like, that future business that you're trying to build itself for yourself? Because it is an emotional, spiritual journey. And we had conversation about this as well. It's not about the financial part. You have to be all in on what you're building. But what does that look like for you, both of you, what you're building towards?
Yeah, so me and Wouter keep saying to each other that we want to grow the current business to $1 billion company within X amount of years. But now we have to reverse engineer that in order to get to that point. We are realizing product is really important, offer is really important. We're even thinking about adding retail as a channel to our business as well, because Wouter and I have been talking about this a lot. E-commerce is just one channel of your brand, or one selling channel of your brand. And you can also do retail. Of course, it's an entirely different game, but yeah, we're very interested to tap in that channel as well.
Exactly, right? So in the end, the brand is the goal. We find it interesting when people, sometimes when you ask someone in our space, what do you do? They tell ecom. But ecom, as Tobias says, is just one part of the whole game, right? It's much more, it's much broader. And in that sense, you can build a lot more value in your business, in your brand than just the ecom space. We talk about societal value as well, right? We create jobs not only in our business, but also with the suppliers, but also, with you guys, etc. And hopefully later on, we can help our friends or family members as well, because it's not just us anymore. It's about everyone benefiting from what we're building. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that synergy between offline and online, the retail component as well as the e-tail, it's very interesting. And China, actually, I've experienced that myself back then. They call it the O2O concept, online to offline, offline to online. So any interaction you have with the end customer is a chance to convert them to one or the other. So it's about the touch points. Where you get their touch points. So they see a physical QR code somewhere, they scan it, it goes to the website. Or they go to the store, they scan the QR code to pay in the store, which is an online transaction. Or getting a community in place where you have a community of individuals with a like-minded philosophy, brand, etc. So it's very interesting to see as well the dynamics of the O2O. What you're describing pretty much is like, how do we integrate that experience being present in multiple locations so that we can connect in the best possible way with our audience.
Exactly. And it would also make it easier to tap into certain niches if you are available in multiple places, right? Not only online, but also offline. You're absolutely right.
Well, like we said as well in the beginning, it took years we know each other for years, or EcommOps for years, but you never really were convinced using our services until I think last year. What convinced you? I'm just going to put you on the spot. What convinced you to start using it?
So Tobias and I, we have so many moments where we say to each other, we should have done this earlier, man.
Yeah.
We should have done this earlier.
There are plenty of these moments. Yeah. So I've worked with one agent for a longer period of time already. So I started Ecom in 2019. Started with a clothing brand that failed, and then I tapped into drop shipping. At this point, I learned about this agent because I was selling a product. It was not a cheap product, but not really a brandable product. I kind of built a relationship with this person, not knowing that this was actually a middleman. At one point, we realized that we actually wanted to create a brand and not just dropship products from China. We realized that we wanted to have more control over the supply chain, talking with the factories, being able to make your custom products, stuff like that. And this specific agent wouldn't allow us to do so. Immediately, the red flags went up for us, and we were like, okay, we have to switch to a different partner. And we were very happy that we already knew you guys. So there was a very smooth transition to you guys. Since that point, we've been, the brand has been going a lot better. Yeah.
It really depends on what type of business you're trying to build, right? Because there are a lot of people who are solely trying to do drop shipping. And in that sense, the agent was very good because she was very proactive, etc., and really helped us out there. But when you're trying to build a brand and you need control over the whole supply chain, you really have to look at it holistically. You cannot just go with one agent who has more control over your business than you might realize. And then when we switched to EcommOps, we got full control back over the production side. But now also we have much better insights in the fulfillment part, which in the beginning was a very, a tense situation for us because it was very stressful. It was new. We had to learn different cash flow management systems as well. Whereas, for example, with our old agent, we could pay afterwards. And with you guys, you have to pay up front. That really changes everything. But to be honest, we thought in our minds that it was a bigger issue than it was actually in practice, right? Because when we switched, it was very easy. And within a month, we were up and running again. Actually, within a week, I would say.
Yeah, very fast, yeah.
That was for us very insightful that we really got control over the brand back and very, very important as well to scale and to grow more uniquely.
It is in the end. We see that a lot. There's a loyalty with your suppliers or with your agent, which is a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think the conversations we had as well, if you don't feel a need to switch, you don't switch to just switch to somewhere else. There needs to be a reason to switch. We were also discussing about, okay, go a little bit deeper, ask these questions, poke a little bit and see whether it's actually as loyal as you thought it was.
Yeah.
Is that loyalty like mutual from their side as well? That's definitely something that we've together basically have been poking, not to make you switch, but actually to get more transparency of what's happening behind the scene.
Yeah, and what also helped for us was actually going there. So we went to China, we went to the agent actually and saw the operations, and that gave us some context as to what it was, and that really opened our eyes as well, perhaps to look somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, you have to find out.
So we know that you buy the stock, you put it in our warehouse, we take care of the fulfillment, but how is the process actually helping you, and how does it really work from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's a good question in the sense that now with all the tariffs and the new government in the States, they are trying to get more of the production towards the States, which I find very interesting if you think about it, because China in the production sense, but also in the fulfillment sense, is very quick, right? If we actually in our production line currently, when we go from purchase order to delivery in the warehouse in Shenzhen, it's around 3 days, maybe sometimes even 2. Sometimes even 1 if it's in stock already. So that's very quick in that sense. So you can scale more quickly compared to if you would do local fulfillment in, for example, Europe or, for example, in the United States, because then you would have to bulk ship all your goods to the States. With you guys, with EcommOps, we can just go factory, warehouse in Shenzhen, and then worldwide delivery within 10 days. That's really quick. Try to beat that.
To add on that, it's also good for the cash flow. I mean, because it's so quick, yeah, your cash flow stays quite healthy.
Yeah, because you really have to take into account all the cash that you have in your inventory, and especially if you ship it to the States, if you do a sea freight, it's stuck for months. Of course, you can do it via plane, but it's a lot more expensive. But with China fulfillment, our cash is not stuck that long in our inventory. I mean, you can actually keep the inventory quite low if you have good terms with your factories also, where you can deliver quickly. And I think that really adds a lot of benefit. But that means that you need to have control over your production and also control over the fulfillment, which is exactly what EcommOps offers.
Because you're buying it in batches, or you're buying the raw materials first and then get the finished product delivered to us? What's the flow?
Currently, it's in batches, indeed. The next stage in our product development would be that we also look at the raw materials more often. But right now, we just order batches, indeed.
And the factory sources the raw materials. But like Tobias said, we are quite interested in more unique fabrics, and more unique designs, customizing that. So that would mean that we will probably go to Paris or wherever to source cool fabrics and then do that part ourselves also. Everything to add more value on the products, to add more value to the clients.
The visit to China and seeing it for yourself, how operations go, also meeting factory, like how has that helped you to scale and grow your business?
I believe we've been to China now 4 times for our business, maybe 3 times. So the first time we only went to the Canton Fair and visiting the previous agent. Yeah, really amazing to visit the Canton Fair as well for sourcing, etc. But we didn't really have a strict mission other than that for the first time. And the second time when we visited China, we actually went to our factories and really tried to build up a good relationship from there. And this really helped us with the product development, also the communication.
Going to China has been one of the most important things that we have done in order to build the actual relationships with our factories, but also with you guys with EcommOps, right? Because seeing actual operations is so different than talking on WeChat. And also it shows the factories and all your other contacts in China that you're serious about your business. You really want to be there, you really want to invest in the relationship. And that was of immense value, I would say. And it's something that will continue doing. Actually, next month, we're going back. We're going to China again.
It's also very fun. These people they are amazing. One factory even cooked for us, did some baijiu with them. It's a really fun time. And I think in China, only this way you build serious relationships.
I think the way China sometimes is seen is that you don't see it per se as humans, but once you're in the same room and you have the encounter, you realize, well, we're all humans. We all try to make make things happen, and let's do that together. And the desire is there from their side to make it a reality, but communication is sometimes just the problem. And if you're in a physical room, then communication becomes easier because you've looked each other in the face, you shared a meal, you got drunk together, and then as a
That's very
foundation.
important. Yeah, but also like on WeChat, Tobias and I think we already said we're quite ambitious and we're always in a hurry, you know. You want everything going faster, faster because you have the ideas, but of course there's production time, sampling, etc. If you do not know your counterpart, it's very easy to put pressure on them and then they dislike that as well, right? But if you know them, you can have a little bit more respect and understanding in how they are and what their issues are. So if you want to make a change to your product, they will explain to you, okay, then we will have to do this, this, and that. Whereas if you do not visit, you don't know.
Because when it comes to e-commerce, and most of the social media, the videos that you see are about how do I generate more traffic. It's all about getting more orders, running your ads, getting landing pages, using influencers. So how's that for you? Like when we're talking about, we have a different voice, right? We're talking about the back end of the supply chain. You mentioned that it's important, but what is for you the real driver of or mix of drivers to scale a brand globally?
That's a good question. I would say it's holistic. It's everything. And we are now in the middle part of our own better understanding of how we actually convey the brand holistically in the ads, in the website, everywhere where you get the feeling, okay, this is the brand. And our goal for now is to even illustrate that better with better images, you know, professional images, more settings, and focusing more and more on the specific target groups that we're focusing on. And then, yeah, we hope that, of course, this will result in even better results for the brand.
I think also we kind of realized lately that outsourcing is one of the best things to do for a business, because we used to do everything ourselves, but you quickly realize that you don't have enough time. And there are a lot of people that are better at video editing than you are, better at creating image ads than you are, better at photography than you are. So we realized that we can actually use people, get them into the business, and use that as leverage as well. That's amazing. That helps us grow tremendously.
Yeah, I think the human factor of leverage is a very interesting concept in your business, because of course you start by doing everything yourself because simply there's no cash to outsource. But once you get a certain skill, you really get the ceilings. You know, where you reach a ceiling, and if you do not outsource, then you cannot go past that ceiling simply because there is not enough time, nor is there enough knowledge in the business itself, right? We could learn how to do it, but then the learning curve is very long, steep, perhaps, you know, and then you miss the growth that you could have had otherwise if you would have outsourced it. So that's something that we are learning and experiencing as we speak.
And sometimes it can be not painful, but I would say like sometimes it's hard to outsource something that you really like doing, for example. But yeah, it's that's good in the end.
So where do you find this information and this knowledge? What is the go-to guide, go-to platform, go-to?
I don't want to sound corny, but the meetings that you host, the EcommOps dinners, etc., have been very valuable for us.
Going to China, having these events that EcommOps host, meeting your suppliers, meeting other like-minded individuals at, for example, the Canton Fair. Other information we get from podcasts, reading books, of course, Twitter as well, or X. There's more information than you think there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say like definitely the dinners that you guys host for clients and prospects, those have been of utmost value to us in the sense of the connections that you make and the information that you share there is very insightful. And what we have learned is it's not necessarily about how many people you know, but it's more about the depth of the connections that you have with the people you know. And for us, like when we have a connection and we feel like, okay, this is a good connection and we can really build upon this connection and we invest into it. I wouldn't say that we have a huge network, although we do know a lot of people, but the people that we do network with are like, we like to keep them close to us so we can help each other, you know, and just share knowledge on a daily basis. That's very cool.
And this industry is very delicate because some people copy each other or they steal information. So it's based on trust, right? So for us, it's also very, very selective on who we onboard as a client, because it's not about the pure financial gain for neither of us, not for us, not for you, but not, it should not be. So therefore, when we do this kind of dinners, it has to be in an intimate setting, but also being mindful of, let's try to create some synergies somehow, because we're not the expert on everything, and neither are you. That's why you're outsourcing stuff. And we also realize that we have limitations on advice to give. I think the one that you just mentioned that helped you as helping you recently was actually there in episode 13. The brother and sister, Thomas and Svea, we've connected you. Let's definitely listen to that episode as well to learn about their journey. Their journey is completely different from Tobias and Wouter, but just as powerful. And to be able to them elevating each other, I think this is why we host these dinners. Of course, we have a great meal. We have some drinks, we just chat, but it's in the end, the follow-up afterwards, which is on you guys. You guys followed up. The way you guys present yourself is so pure that everyone wants to help you as well. So definitely also kudos on that. Keep that going, because that's definitely something that's helping you now.
Yeah, and we're very grateful for the opportunities that we get as well in that sense, right? Because you feel the energy with the right people, and when you get that, that's very unique.
And what have you learned from actually running your business? And actually, I'm more curious about something that you never expected that you would ever learn from running the business.
I would say thinking like a producer rather than a consumer, in the sense that I used to be kind of a materialistic person, but once you start with having your own business, you kind of let go of that. I don't know why, but you realize that certain things are not necessary in your life.
I would agree with that. And I used to work in private banking and asset management, and I thought I knew everything about risk reward balances. But I knew nothing until it's your own money. If the leverage and risk in your own business is something completely different compared to when you're doing it for a 9 to 5, that I never expected to learn more about that in the way that I did, because I thought I already knew it, but it was very insightful. And also learning more about, the opportunities that you should take and not the ones that you can take. There's also a difference in that. Not every opportunity is a good one to take.
Can you give an example of that one?
Tobias knows where I'm going right now, but when you have a brand, one brand, and you feel like, okay, this is something cool, keep it with one brand. We humans are only good at one thing at a time. If you really want to go for something, if you're really passionate and obsessed about it, go for one thing at a time, and don't try to combine different brands, in that sense that unless you have a great system with great people and a whole team working for you, really try to limit yourself to one brand and make that brand great. That is what we have been doing.
That's good. It's good that you mentioned, because we did have the conversation as well where you wanted to kickstart something else alongside of it. You have to experience yourself. What's the focus? What's the opportunity? How do you, the 80-20 rule, so to say, like what do you focus most on? And we see that a lot of our clients actually are not having a wide variety of products. They're focused on the brand. They focus on what's selling and actually growing that, getting that product upgraded, getting a better scale globally, but actually leveraging that to the fullest instead of having a lot of attention to creating something new on the side, unless it matures, right? Unless you feel like it matured or I lose satisfaction out of doing it, I will just continue running it, but I'm get excited from creating something. And then you just go with that direction. So it obviously is a personal choice, but we see that quite often where somebody wants to create something new while the other one is actually still in an infant stage of scaling it to the next level.
Yeah, and like Tobias said, we're going for $1 billion company. If you go for $1 billion company, you have to be all in. It cannot be something you do on the side. It's for Tobias and myself at this stage. It's everything. The moment we wake up until we go to bed, it's the only thing we think about. Which is not a good thing in and of itself, maybe. But
no, but I can understand, like, if you run a less time consuming business, for example, a dropshipping store with one product, not so much customization, I believe that you can really have multiple brands in such way. But in our case, no, we really truly believe that we have to focus on just this project.
So how do you balance that though with the people around you, with your work in itself? You're all in on the business, right? How does that translate into your environment as well? Because you have to make choices as a business owner as well.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a perfect example of learning by doing, because I do have a relationship as well, and I really have to plan things properly right now. At the beginning, I didn't do that really well. So my partner told me that too. But Yeah, it's going well right now, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also helps that Tobias and I try to push each other to have the balance as much as we can, right? It's not that we demand from each other to always be online. It's we theoretically we already reached the overarching goal where we have our own freedom when and where we can work. So we got that covered. So in that sense, we are already very well off with our own goals and what we have tried to achieve. But now it's more about the actual fulfillment of our own bigger ambitions of building the brand. So when you work doesn't really matter. You're always subconsciously working anyway, but you just have to make sure that you spend enough time with your mom, with your friends, with your partner, and we just do it. We try to do it as much as we can, but it is of course very difficult, I would say.
We kind of map out also for ourselves like where our clients are on their journey. So we have that 3 stages that we go through. I think we go through that in a previous podcast episode as well. And that really also starts with, okay, realizing you have to outsource stuff, which you guys have figured out, but no, realizing that you actually are running it, but doesn't mean you're doing it. You're the brain behind it. It's going to be top of mind anytime, anyway. Even if you're gonna have coffee with your mom or take a walk in the park, it's always in your head, and the ideas flow at these occasions more than grinding behind your laptop responding to messages, right?
That's true, and I think in that sense, I kind of enjoy it also, and I know Tobias does as well, right?
Yeah,
Because
definitely. Yeah.
it's so cool to see what you have pictured actually construct in front of you. You have a vision. Even for us 4 months ago compared to now, we had the vision where we would be. Right now, we are here now, and then for 4 months in ahead, it's already going to be difficult as well, or different. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think our vision is getting clearer and clearer day by day as well. It's like at the beginning you have so much new knowledge, so much new things you have to think about, but now I don't know. It seems that our vision is getting more crystal clear.
More defined.
Yeah, more defined. Yeah.
So what would you advise someone that just starts, let's say, start using China fulfillment? What would your advice be to help them get things moving quicker or avoid them making the mistakes that you made?
Go to
Good.
China.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah, go to China.
I would say go to China. That really helped, and also build systems and processes that can survive without you actively managing the systems.
Getting the right people involved within the business as well.
Do you guys have any regrets or things that you would have done differently if you would know what you know now?
Not really regrets, but there are really a lot of moments where we learned a lot. For example, yeah, starting with you guys earlier, we wished we've done that earlier than we did. Focusing on one thing, which we discussed as well, really important for us. Also customizing our products earlier, maybe. I think we run the same product for maybe a little bit too long, and now we're in the stage that we only run products made by us.
No regrets. No regrets, because I think the value was in the moments where we look back upon, where we say, okay, we should have done it earlier or we should have done it sooner. Those are the actual moments where we learned the most, right? Because when it all goes well and your ROAS is fine and your CPA is good and your margins are great, that's not very educative. But the moments when it's tough, that's when you learn the most.
Yeah, nicely said. I think that these are also the moments that you become, or you can become a little bit laid back because you're like, oh, everything is fine. The ROAS is good. The ads performing well. The sales are nice. But indeed, in these moments, you don't really learn that much.
To wrap up this podcast, maybe some final words, Tobias, that you would like to share.
First of all, thank you so much for having us. It's been a pleasure to be on this podcast. I would say, if you're not fulfilling from China yet, you should do so immediately. You can reach out to EcommOps today and don't wait for that. Our experience has been amazing. And yeah, I'm very, very curious about how the future will develop for us. It's going to be bright.
Thank you both so much for joining this episode and sharing your authentic story about not just working with us, but just your journey as a brand. I'm very excited for the future for both of you because I'm really cheering you on from the sides to make sure that you guys also stay on track and accomplish what you have envisioned for the future, but still being present as well in whatever is coming your way. Thanks again. Appreciate that. And for the listeners, see you on the next episode.
Cheers.
Yeah.